Alright, last big push before launch, and finishing this project was pretty exciting. Phillip has been working on our hatch for almost a year now, and it was finally ready to go on the boat.
It's almost dead, but you can see while I was trying to cut it down. This is flat. I got a little bit over here, a little bit over there that need to be cut down still. So I have a piece of 1/2 inch thick polycarbonate that I'm going to make new washboards for my boat. So I took all the physical measurements of everything I needed, and I also, and while taking physical measurements, I took and I made a template. Kind of just like double check, like, hey, does the, like, because it's a boat and they built it, like, is it perfectly square or is each side symmetrical? I don't know. So we are going to, it's kind of a, like, trust but verify. So, and you can actually see this is lining up with a jig. And this side also lines up pretty close. So just like a simple verification that, yeah, it is symmetrical, because it could be that when they built it, like one side they got off by a 1/2 inch. And the other thing I did is, because the washboards, it's not on a vertical plane, they angle back, so the bottom, the top, and then the split where I cut them in half, they're gonna all be angled a little bit. So I did create a template to set my angle for my table saw, so when I cut it, it's cut at the right angle. All right, so now I have the shape of the washboards. Now comes the fun part, I guess. So now I get to angle the blade. Instead of being straight up, it's going to tip this way, and I have to cut the bottom so it sits all the way down inside. Oh, I have to cut the bottom, sorry. So it sits all the way down in the slot, and then I'm going to cut the top so it is essentially parallel to the water line. Because right now it would be like a point. And then I will I'll split it in half somewhere I'll figure out what I want to do for size and I'll split it. And then that'll be the shape of my washboard. And I'm hoping at some point in the future to build the upper one again, but out of wood, with a screen in it. And that's just going to be used for some ventilation when at anchor or in the slip. So this is the angle that it tips backwards up. So if you looked at it this way, this would be straight to the water, well, parallel to the water line, and then this would tip backwards. So when it's sitting in the boat, it's like this, like that. So around there. So that this is flat. This angles back instead of being like this. And I took a measurement. I took of both sides, and they both seem to be lining up good to the blade. So I have it all set up to cut the center seam. And so when I cut this panel, I actually cut it an 1/8 inch bigger than it needed to be. And because this is an 1/8 inch curve, it'll cut that down to the right size. The other thing I did is I actually changed the angle of this saw blade. I tipped it more, and that way the seam between the two is actually tipped into the cockpit, and that will help it to drain. As the water runs down the top panel and it hits that seam, it's not going to go up and out, it's just going to keep going down. And it's not much, but it should be enough to just keep that seam clean and free. Well, I just keep water from waking back up into the boat. So the last thing that I'm doing to these panels is breaking all the edges, because they were covered with the table saw, so like especially the angled ones, they're kind of sharp. Even the edges, the other corners, and I'll just keep it from chipping. It'll also, like when you're grabbing it with your hands, it won't feel as harsh on your hands. So I'm just using a block plane. I'm just kind of breaking all the edges. Nothing fancy, but just the little minor details that make the project better, or at least seem to be a little more professional.
The last part of this project was adding tint to the washboards. It proved to be a bit trickier than we had anticipated. In fact, Phillip would love to discuss the finer points of rig tuning with anyone, but applying a finicky sticker is just not his forte. And smoked polycarb would have been our preferred material, but this piece was free, so that's just what we had.
Alright, I just pulled the bungs out of this piece. So now I can pull the screws and physically remove it. I've got a new rail that's going to go in here. That's going to actually close this gap up for the polycarbonate washboards, because they're 1/2 inch instead of 3/4 inch. And then I'll have to clean up behind this and then fill the screw holes.
So to almost complete the removal of the exterior wood, Phillip had some matching aluminum bars made and anodized. It definitely looks much more sleek and modern than some busted up teak pieces and some paint stick shims.
So this support beam inside our hatch, I don't know if you can even see it, has been rubbing on this spot right here. So I am going to, I think, cut this down. Maybe I'll use a sander, but I think I'm going to cut it down. So it's just a little bit, there's a slight height change. So I think I'm going to cut that down, and that'll give me a little more clearance for this, so that it doesn't just keep wearing on it. So it's mostly just taking the paint off, which is a cosmetic thing, but it looks bad and it's frustrating to me.